Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed Lee. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville, the loveliest little neighborhood in all of Boston. We are so very happy and absolutely honored that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in this mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREV AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, CastBox, YouTube, Player FM, Boomplay. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. We have a really powerful episode for you today, helping kids find hope. Deedee Cummings is up first. She is here to celebrate hope in the nick of time. And later in the show, Gazala Shoguagi is here to celebrate Max in the Mood Master. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Trumpet, the Miracle Wolf Pup series. There's a brand new book in the series, and we're so excited to tell you all about it. Trumpet becomes a mom. In this exciting book, Trumpet and Lighthawk, now a bonded pair, start their own family with their very first litter of pups. Families can read together, schools can explore the importance of wolf packs and conservation, and Trumpet fans everywhere can celebrate this milestone in her incredible journey. Grab your copy today, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, select bookstores, and the Wolf Conservation Center, where Trumpet and her family live. Plus, 50% of all profits go right back to supporting the Wolf Conservation Center, with more donated to Lighthawk Conservation Flying. So grab your book today and have a group haul for Trumpet and her family.
Hey guys, author Ashley Mosley here, and I teamed up with author, educator, and scientist Dr. Michael Wendelspeck, and together we are bringing the wildlife of Belize right into your hands. Kids will meet real animals like jaguars and tapirs in Nacho House Cat and Why Did the Tapir Cross the Street? Both books beautifully illustrated by local student artists. In these books, we will learn the challenges that these animals face in the wild. For teachers, Inspired Adventures offers K-5 toolkits packed with age-appropriate activities that connect literacy, science, and conservation. Our newest book, This Birdie Told Me, landed on the shelves on September 23rd. Visit inspiredadventures.com to get your copy. Let's keep the adventure going.
This episode is brought to you by OnceUponADance.com. Take storytelling to a whole new level. With Once Upon a Dance, your child will do more than just listen. They'll move, imagine, and connect. It's a literary adventure and a performance all in one. From graceful turns to energetic leaps, each story brings an immersive experience that engages both body and mind. Whether your child enjoys unicorns, bats, zombies, or cats, Once Upon a Dance has a Dance It Out story just for them. Celebrate joyful movement and visit OnceUponADance.com or find them at your favorite social media platform. My friends, we are in for a treat. Our guest is here today to celebrate her brand new picture book. It's called Hope in the Nick of Time. Please welcome to the show, Deedee Cummings. Hey, Deedee, how are you?
Hi, Jed. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on today. I appreciate it.
Delighted to have you on. Tell us about Hope in the Nick of Time, please.
It is a holiday book that takes place after the holidays. It takes place around New Year's, so I guess that's still included in the holiday season. But it is the third in a series called In the Nick of Time. And I really didn't plan to write 3 books in this series, but we were talking a little bit before you started recording about me being a therapist, and many of my stories come from my work as a therapist. So I was moved to write Hope in the Nick of Time after learning a pretty staggering statistic about childhood suicide rates. Which is, not a warm and fuzzy, happy subject for a picture book conversation, but it is what promoted or prompted me to write Hope in the Nick of Time, which is all about having hope as a child in the world. And when you can't find hope in the world, that means that you were meant to be the hope.
Yeah, I love that. I was talking to Deedee before we hit record and was sharing with her that I had the absolute pleasure of performing educational magic shows for 35 years around the country. And I remember very, very early on, I was in a school in Rhode Island, and I arrived at the school, and I was there to do a healthy choices, say no to drugs kind of show. And the teachers were telling me as I was setting up that one of their 5th graders had just committed suicide the week before.
Oh, my gosh.
This is probably 30 years ago, because I remember speaking to the principal and saying, hey, listen, I'm really sorry about the 5th grader. I heard that one of your 5th graders committed suicide. And do we want to address that in this healthy choices? And he gets so upset with me. He's like, how dare you say a 5th grader is not capable of committing suicide? What is wrong with you? He just walked away from me. And I'm guessing from what you're telling me that principal was misinformed.
I wonder if what the principal meant was that a 5th grader is not capable of committing suicide. One of the things that we have started to shift in the world of behavioral health and mental health is the language around suicide, because a lot of people think that suicide is a very selfish act. And I want people to understand that suicide is not a selfish act, that it is a condition of depression, which eats away at your mind in a similar way that cancer does. And I don't mean biologically, but mentally, your mind will lie to you when you have depression. So I wonder if what that principal meant was that we don't really say that people commit suicide. We say they died of suicide in the same way that we say people died of cancer. But I will say this, and I promise I didn't mean to come on here today and gear the conversation towards suicide, but I also always believe that conversations take us where we need to go. So maybe your audience needs to hear this today, that children aren't capable of committing suicide, but they do die by suicide. And the other alternative for that conversation with the principal may have been that we as adults have been woefully unprepared to talk to children about suicide. In fact, as a therapist, when I've talked about suicide in schools before, there's had to be all kinds of special permission slips. Parents have had to be warned, and some parents even get upset and say, I don't want you to talk to my child about suicide. And my response is always, I would love for you to talk to one of the parents I have worked with whose child has died of suicide before you make that decision that you don't want your child to understand what this is about. There are children who are truly suffering in our culture for so many reasons. And the sad thing is, Jed, that these suicide statistics have only increased in those 30 years. We need to be talking to children about suicide.
I agree. Tell us, if you would, that these statistics that you're referring to, what are the numbers?
Well, let me say that Hope in the Nick of Time is not about suicide.
Sure. Okay.
Hope in the Nick of Time is about hope. So I just want to take one moment. I want to take one moment to reiterate that Hope in the Nick of Time is about hope. And this new term that I talk about called hoping skills, we've all talked about coping skills. We've all been taught those very powerful tools of how to cope, but we're not really taught how to hope. And that is what Hope in the Nick of Time is about. And the reason I wrote Hope in the Nick of Time is because I learned about a statistic recently, a very recent data, that suicide is now the second, and this blows my mind. This really, even as a therapist, took me by surprise. Suicide is now the second leading cause of death for children ages 10 to 14. And what that means, I know your listeners probably won't be able to see you shaking your head, but I'm the same way, shaking my head, that babies 10 to 14 years old don't see a tomorrow, and they don't see a tomorrow with them in it. And this is a real problem in our society, and the numbers are growing. And if you're a parent or a teacher listening right now, my point is not to scare you. My point is to say, we've got to talk about this. We've got to learn from one another. You don't necessarily need to be afraid that your child will die of suicide, but your child needs to understand what this is and how your mind lies to you. Children who are passing away from suicide truly believe that there's no other alternative, and that there's no way out, and that there is no tomorrow with them in it. And we have got to work with children to make sure they understand how long life is, and that there is so much hope that they can access when we work with them on developing that skill. And that's what Hope in the Nick of Time is about.
Well, I'm really happy that you're clarifying that, and it's I think it's so very important. I read a study once that it seemed like a silly study to me. It's like, oh, kids who have dreams do better in school and they're happier. And I thought to myself, duh, but what kid doesn't have dreams? This is crazy. And so I decided I was on tour, and so I was going to be in front of 500 kids in the morning, 500 kids in the afternoon for 5 days straight. I go, I'm going to do a very unscientific poll and just ask kids, hey, kids, how many of you guys have a dream? You want to grow up, you want to do this, do that. And no school did more than 40 or 50% of the kids raise their hands. And I was asking the teachers after am I like not being clear? Am I asking something that the kids don't understand? And they said, no, your question is very open. And it didn't seem to bother the teachers that the kids weren't having dreams or acknowledging that they have dreams.
Because they're used to it. That's why they're used to it. Jed, we don't live in a society that encourages dreaming. I mean, how old were you the first time an adult, kind of knocked you on your head and said, stop daydreaming? Everything that is creative in us is discouraged. And we are told it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time to paint. It's a waste of time to dream. It's a waste of time to lay on your back and watch the clouds go by. We are trained to get to work and to produce. And if you've spent your whole life getting to work and producing, you've missed life, unless you're producing art. But kids are discouraged from dreaming. So I'm not surprised at all. And you said that the study said that kids who dream do better in school. Kids who dream also do better in life.
Yes, and that was the whole thing. It was better in school. They're healthier. They're happier. It's just like kids who live gratefully. And wow. It's interesting you say that, because I do remember somebody giving me a dope slap many times in the back of the head telling me to stop daydreaming.
Yeah.
I just didn't listen to them.
Yeah.
I just figured out different ways to do it so it wouldn't get caught.
Yeah.
So tell it in the book, how are our kids, how are we talking and teaching kids this hoping skill through your book?
The world is a very loud place. And kids and adults, too, often have trouble finding their place in the world. They have trouble hearing their own voice because the world is so loud. And the bad thing about that, the really bad thing about that, is that the negative noise is always the loudest. The negative is always the easiest to hear and the easiest to hold on to. You know, how many times have you had just a wonderful day where literally 50 things went right, but you're ruminating over the one thing that went wrong? Mm-hmm. And that is how a lot of us spend our lives. And this is actually something that therapy can help you with. How to tune out that one negative thing that happened as the insignificant event that it is. So in the book, I talk a lot about how even when you're having a bad day, how to focus on what's going right. And this is not toxic positivity. That's another lie we've been told, is that when people talk about wanting to be hopeful or finding gratitude, that a lot of times people think that's called toxic positivity, where you're not really allowing a person to express the grief or the trauma they feel. And I'm not talking about grief or trauma. People need to have the room to express that. I'm talking about even when things look bleak, even when it is dark. I often describe it to children like this. You know, when there's a day when you really want to play outside, but there's a thunderstorm raging and you're staring out the window. Hope is knowing that the sun will come back. That's what hope is. And so in the book, I talk a lot about finding hope, looking for hope. It's all around us, really. Just when you're feeling bad, it's hard to see. And if there is a time when you're looking around you and you really can't find hope, and that's possible, then that's when it's time for you to kick it in and for you to exude that hope and put hope out in the world. And it can be a very small thing. It can be something as small as giving someone a compliment. You know, these aren't things that have to cost money or cost an extreme amount of energy, but it's on us to put that out in the world. And the funny thing about that is when we're looking for hope and we can't find it, when we give hope to other people, then we start to feel that hope too and actually feel better. This is why people volunteer at shelters where you feed people and things like that. It looks bleak, but when you become the hope, that hope radiates from you out into the world. And we really need to teach kids that language and those actions so that they see that life is bigger than today.
And we've talked a lot here on the podcast about, you know, books that teach kids lessons that they need to hear, but also teaching parents lessons that they really need to hear. It sounds like there are a lot of parents out there who could gain a lot of insight from sitting down and reading Hope in the Nick of Time themselves.
I think it would be a great reminder for parents. And, you know, I read books to my kids and I don't think this book was written for my kid. I think this book was written for me. And Hope in the Nick of Time might be one of those kinds of books.
I've shared here on the podcast many times. My daughter, when she was 15 and 16, she went to a very unique international school here in Boston where she would have 3 weeks or a month off for vacation and instead of the week off that most kids in public schools have. And so she would choose to come out on the road with me and we would go and tour and she'd be in the van with me. And inevitably, when you're traveling around doing thousands of miles, something's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And she very quickly developed the ability to be in the midst of that problem, that crisis, to be able to turn to me and say, "It's going to make a good story someday."
I love that.
You know, how can we teach kids? And I don't know. I mean, that's kind of the attitude I have. I don't know if she just picked that up from me, but how can we teach our kids that school to be able to say in the middle of a crisis when everything's falling around us, just to kind of go, "Oh man, I'm going to be able to tell a great story about this later on in life."
The best thing that any parent can do is modeling. It truly is. One of my favorite cartoons is we do a lot here to encourage a love of reading for kids. And when I say here, I mean in my hometown of Louisville, Kentucky, we do a lot to encourage a love of reading. And one of my favorite cartoons is there are two parents and two kids sitting on a park bench, and one parent and child are on some kind of electronic like tablet, and one parent and child are reading a book. Mm-hmm. And the parent with the electronic tablet turns to the parent with the book and says, "How do you get them to read?" And the reason that's one of my favorite cartoons is because it demonstrates modeling. If you want your children to read more, you should read more. Mm-hmm. If you want your children to be kind humans, you should be a kind human. If you want your child to live a life that fills them up, encourages them to follow their dreams, and fills them with hope, then you should live that life too. Mm-hmm. A lot of times as parents, when we do follow our dreams, when we do go off and do something like start a podcast, which people don't think looks like a traditional, everybody wants to know that you're working, that you're bringing in an income. And so when you go out on your own and you do something hopeful, like starting a podcast that's going to spread a word about picture books and make people feel hopeful, sometimes people think, well, that's not really a good use of your time because that's the way we've been trained, right? Mm-hmm. But that's not true. When you have a dream to start a podcast and you do it like you did, then your children know that it's okay to have a dream and do it. That's the best thing that you can do to teach your children hope, is to also live a life with hope.
Yeah. I'm guessing that there are some parents who started listening to us back in minute 1 and 2 when we were having that very heavy conversation, who went on to the next podcast. I don't want to deal with this.
I know.
But there are parents who are still listening here, and maybe one or more parents are listening because they're sensing that their child doesn't have that sense of hope, doesn't have that hoping skills. What are some signs that parents should look for that? I mean, I think Hope in the Nick of Time would be a great book for any family to have, mm-hmm. just like a book. We read books to our kids to introduce them to other people, to other situations, mm-hmm. to give them, to help them practice for mm-hmm. dangerous situations. That's why we read spooky books. Mm-hmm. But what might be a sign for a parent that, gee, I really need to get this book for my kid yesterday because I think my kid's in crisis?
Well, all kids need this book because it is just a beautiful holiday story. And you don't even have to believe in Christmas. The book that comes right before Hope in the Nick of Time is called In the Nick of Time too. And that book focuses on diversity. So the book in itself is very diverse. It's not just a book for Christmas. It's a book for families who love reading holiday picture books together as a family. So again, I think it's important that we had this conversation today, but I don't want people to think this is a picture book for kids in crisis because kids who are not in crisis need this conversation, maybe even more so than kids who are in crisis, because once your child is in crisis, it's a little harder to reach them. Mm. So going back to your original question, what are some signs that you should be concerned about is just any markedly dramatic change in your child. And that's going to be different for all children. Sometimes people say if your child's not talking to you, well, some kids are more talkative than others. Mm-hmm. So how do you gauge that? How you gauge that is you are the expert on your child. I always tell people this when they bring their child to therapy. I don't know your child when you bring them to me. You are the expert on your child. So if you are concerned about your child, I'm concerned. That's all I need to know. So signs look different in all children, but I would say in general, kids tend to be very boisterous and playful. And your child just appears to not be taking joy in the things that they used to take joy in, if they seem like they're withdrawn, if they seem sad, if they're talking to you in a way that doesn't sound hopeful, if they're talking like it's easier to give up on things, it's easier to walk away from things, they're not attached to things, that's concerning. I tell all parents, we're just not taught this in this culture. All kids go to have an annual physical, right?
Mm-hmm.
All kids should have an annual mental.
Mm-hmm.
All kids should go talk to a therapist at least one time a year. And you see this being implemented in some public schools. You see public schools now screening children for mental health concerns when that never had. 30 years ago, when you were in that school, that was not happening. So we have come a long way in mental health, but we still have a lot further to go as far as we as a society understanding when to be concerned about a child's mental health.
Yes, absolutely. This has been an incredibly powerful conversation, and I'm so glad we had it. What was it that inspired you to start writing children's books? You were pretty busy in the first place as a therapist and as a parent. You decided to add this to your already busy day.
Children inspired me to write because I was working with children as a therapist, and they were giving me all kinds of tools and secrets and things that work for them. And I thought, I need to put this stuff in books because children are hard to reach. I always tell people an adult will come into your office and they'll lay out on your couch and they'll talk for 3 hours nonstop. Children aren't like that. Children do not just start talking a blue streak to you in most cases. Some children will talk to you a lot, but not necessarily about problems. And so the way that children talk is by playing, through reading. Sometimes children wouldn't talk to me and I'd get a book out and we'd start reading, and they didn't know what their problem was or were reluctant to talk about their problem because they thought maybe it would get them in trouble. And we'd read a story and there'd be a problem and the child would say, well, that's dumb. I wouldn't have handled that way. And then I'd say, oh, well, how would you have handled it? So books give you great insight into the way children think. And that's really what got me started in my writing career. I didn't write my first book till I was 44 years old. A lot of people think if you're a writer, you've been a writer your whole life. But I started writing when I was in my 40s because of these stories that children were giving to me about the world as they saw it.
Yeah. How much of a negative influence are screens? You mentioned the mom at the playground with the iPad. Just let us know what you think about social media. Just let it all out. What should we should be concerned about? What should we celebrate?
Children should not be on social media. I understand that we live in America, and as a parent, it is your right to determine that. So I respect people's rights as a parent to determine that, but I have seen the effects of social media on children, and children should not be on social media at all. That includes Snapchat. It's not just Facebook and Instagram. A lot of kids are on Snapchat because they're, sending pictures back and forth to their cousins, which appears harmless until, they're on vacation and they meet someone at the pool who says, hey, what's your Snapchat? Which happens to 10-year-olds. Screens are exceptionally dangerous for children. It doesn't mean that they can't ever hold a screen like a tablet or a phone in their hand and watch some appropriate YouTube channel or watch Reading Rainbow. I mean, there's a screen started off just being like a TV. So if you are regulating what your children are watching on screens, then there's no harm in that. It's amazing to watch something like Reading Rainbow on a screen. But if your screens are heavily unregulated, your children will find it very easy to navigate to all kinds of things that you never intended for a 6-year-old to see or hear.
Mm.
And that's where screens really become dangerous. The second thing that is dangerous about screens is the amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
I always say screens are like alcohol or like chocolate. There's nothing wrong with chocolate until you eat way too much. There's nothing wrong with alcohol for adults until you drink way too much. Screens are very much the same way. There's nothing wrong with screens until you've had way too much screen time. So children don't need to watch YouTube shorts. They don't need to be on Instagram. There are many, many kids that I work with whose parents allow them on social media, and it's rewiring their brain because children are not playing outside the way they used to. And I apologize. I know I'm giving a little bit of a long answer here, but I want to just tell, it just triggered in my mind that here in the city where I live, Louisville, Kentucky, Jefferson County Public Schools just banned all cell phone use during the daytime, which kids really don't need cell phones in schools. But here's the reason why it triggered in my mind to bring it up. Because there's all kinds of stories being run now everywhere, even on a national level, where teachers are saying the kids are outside playing on the playground again. That's crazy to me. At school, kids were not playing on the playground because they were on these screens. And guess what else happened? Library book checkouts at school soared.
Awesome.
Soared. This is a national story. So, if you're a parent who allows your child on the screens because you're busy doing housework and you want your child to watch something and not bother you while you're doing homework, or housework, I'm not here to judge. As a parent, we all do that, but too much screen time can be very detrimental, and unregulated screen time is exceptionally detrimental.
Yeah. And another thing that I guess very early on, back 8 years ago when we first started reading with your kids, warned us about is, in addition to, that thing in your pocket, that little rectangle that gives your kids access to the world, also gives the world access to your kid.
Yes.
And that is incredibly dangerous.
Yes. I always tell, because sometimes parents really don't get it. They really just don't think that giving your child a phone is that big of a deal. And when I tell them this, then they get it. You would never, ever allow a stranger to come and knock on your door and say, I have a message to give to your child. Mm-hmm. Never. You'd be like, who are you? You slam the door in their face. But that's exactly what you're doing when you give your child screen time.
Right.
There are all kinds of people with all kinds of messages clamoring. The algorithms make it where they're fighting to get to your child to deliver some message. And our worst fear used to be that they were seeing, Toys R Us commercials and, they're hearing something, on a commercial that now they're hounding us to get them as a present. But now it's far worse than that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We should tell everybody where they can go to not only find out more about Hope in the Nick of Time, but find out about all the books that you've created. I think there's like 20 books on your website, and find a little bit more about you.
Yeah, I just started writing books for adults too. After a decade of writing books for children, I just started writing some books that are along the same lines for adults because it starts with children. But we as adults have the bug too. I really admire you for doing this podcast. I really admire you for doing things that help the world, that demonstrate that we can go out on our own and create something that's special and magical for other people. Because a lot of people they never take the leap to do something different. So I've written 2 books recently for adults. The first one is called How to Dream, which is all about, hey, you want to start a podcast? Go do that. Don't wait. But all of my books are available on the Makeaway Media website, where you can read more about our journey and how we got started and why we do what we do. And then, of course, all the other places that books are available too. If you just put in Deedee Cummings books on any platform, you shouldn't have any problem finding them.
Awesome. Deedee, thank you for the kind words, and also thank you for all these insights. We've had a really great time speaking to the author of Hope in the Nick of Time. Pick that book up so you can help your kid learn some hoping skills.
Yeah.
Our guest has been Deedee Cummings. Deedee, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I'll let you know that this episode of Reading with Your Kids is also brought to you by We're Going on a Space Adventure, written by Marie Nichols. This is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Blasting off and speeding through space, Graham cheers to the moon and beyond. But Bracken quickly learns that Graham has a fear of flying, and that he must manage control of the spaceship. On the moon, they narrowly escape a hideous monster as a crater explodes, and on Mars, they need to outrun Martian creatures or risk becoming their dinner. Hoping to find a friendlier planet, they decide to try Jupiter. Then clank, 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 something is attacking the spaceship. You and your kids are going to love this book. It's fun. It's exciting. It celebrates intergenerational friendships, and we love those. We're Going on a Space Adventure by Marie Nichols. It is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Hey, my friends, I have a super idea you are going to love. How about this weekend, turn your backyard cookout into a storybook celebration. Fire up the grill, crack open a few of your favorite picture books, and serve up Big Fork Brand's legendary bacon sausage. Made with nitrate-free bacon and premium pork, it's juicy, smoky, and unforgettable. Top it off with Big Fork's spicy Chicago fire sauce, and you've got a meal as bold as the characters in your favorite bedtime tale. Get 20% off your order using the promo code READ at bigforkbrands.com. That's bigforkbrands.com. Promo code READ to get 20% off, because nothing brings families together like great food, great books, and a whole lot of flavor. Big Fork Brands. Read, grill, repeat. Join us right now from the beautiful state of Washington. Our guest is here today to celebrate her new picture book. It's called Max and the Mood Master, a story to help kids cope with anger and frustration. Please welcome to the show, Ghazala Shoku Ogai. Shoku Ogai.
Yes.
Did I do it? Did I get close?
Yeah, it's close enough. Yes, that's good. Perfect. Thank you.
Well, why don't you say your name so people out there know how it's supposed to be done?
Yeah. So I'm Ghazala Shoku Agai, and I know that it's a long first name and last name, so thank you for trying it. It was perfect.
Well, yeah, I think trying is, I think it's important. Mm-hmm. And I'm at the age right now, I know I'm going to mess up, and I do it all the time, so it feels okay.
And the fact that people are trying to say it like as close as they can, it just is mind-blowing for me. I know that it is hard. Like, there are some sounds in your language that we don't have, like the "a" sound in my language. You don't have it. English speaker people, you don't have it, but still you try to make it as close as possible. So it means a lot.
Well, I'm very happy. I can't wait for you to tell us about Max and the Mood Master.
Okay, so Max and the Mood Master is a book that I wrote for young readers. So the purpose of the book was to help them cope, understand, and also cope the anger and frustration. But before I go into more details about the Max and the Mood Master book, I just want to ask if we can reflect for a moment.
Sure.
So have you ever felt like your anger and your frustration becomes too intense, that you do something or you say something and then immediately afterward you're going to regret it?
If I said no, my beautiful wife would come and correct me right away.
And for me, like, yes, more than I want to admit. So now let's imagine that how would our life be if we learned from early on some skills, some tools to kind of feel more in control of the anger and be able to at least pause and respond rather than react to the situation.
And that would have saved me a lot of a lot of heartache, and it would have stopped me from causing a lot of heartache.
Yeah, so that was like the whole purpose of me writing Max and the Mood Master. I wanted to help children feel more in control of their anger, and also those conversations that come up after they say something. They sometimes feel like, I said it and now my mom and dad, they don't love me. Like, how can I undo what I said and done? So if they have more tools in order to cope and understand their anger and frustration better, those incidences will decrease and they will feel more in control rather than feel like the anger and frustration is just taking over their body and their thoughts.
Yeah. What inspired you to write this book? Was it interactions with your kids, or are you in the field of counseling?
Yeah. So I graduated from counseling psychology programs. I have a master's degree, and now I'm a let's see, there are too many letters in that acronym. I'm an LMHCA, so I'm an associate level therapist. And during my internship, I worked with a lot of children who were issues with anger management and emotion regulation. And when I was working with them at the end of my internship, I had the idea of, okay, I need to write a storybook so that I can combine these basic tools, some of the basic tools. That's why Max and Mood Master is a bit long. So I need to combine some of these tools so that parents and children, they can have the conversation in a more natural and fun way, rather than parents going home and saying, your therapist told you to take 5 seconds. Your therapist told you to breathe. But then if they read a book, they can ask, okay, if Mood Master was here, what would it tell you? Like, which door do you think you should take now that you feel this much anger? So that was the reason that, that was the motivation behind the Max and the Mood Master. And I just want to emphasize for a brief second that I know that at the end of the book I wrote it, but I also want to say that here again that Max and the Mood Master should not be replacement for therapy. Mm-hmm. It can be like a tool that a therapist or like parents or a teacher can use in a classroom or at home, like a bedtime story, to reinforce some of the conversations that happen in therapy. But it can never be a replacement for therapy.
Yeah. Well, you also said this would be a great book for the typical family whose kid doesn't necessarily need therapy, but this is just a great way to develop skills and coping.
I feel like every children should. I feel like even adults. Like, I know that some of my friends, they are adults and they're like, okay, I'm gonna use this. But every children should know some basic tools and coping mechanism, because when they have a friend who is angry, like, they can see, okay, imagine, like, for example, it is a balloon. Now breathe in and then breathe out. Like, they can use those tools with a friend, even if they are not having any issue with anger management.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things that I noticed in my son when he was younger is that every emotion or every negative emotion became anger. You know, he wasn't able to say, oh, I'm disappointed in this, or I'm frustrated at this. It was anything that wasn't awesome turned into anger. And I think
happens a lot.
Yeah. How can we help our kids start to identify those feelings and identify the differences between those feelings?
Like, one thing that I always told some parents, that I know that this is going like a bit away from the Max and the Mood Master, but something that I always told some parents is that we can be a really great role model for our children. Like, if we can name different emotions rather than just, I'm angry at you, or like, I'm excited that you did this. What are other vocabularies that we can use as a parent in a daily basis? When we can model that, then children get that. And also, like, if parents feel like there are a lot of like emotion wheels, especially for children, that they can put on the fridge, and then children can put a magnet on it. Okay, I feel now angry. I feel now more frustrated. But I feel the first thing comes from role modeling and being that role model for your children and expanding their vocabulary, because sadness sometimes can come up as anger. And then you can say that, okay, I know I see that you're angry. Tell me what happened. And then help them. If you feel like it is a sadness, can you name it for them?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, you talking about modeling, I know for myself, when I became a parent, I understood that I would blow up and yell and raise my voice and whatnot, to the point where I actually kept a daily journal. And one of my goals was, I'm not going to yell. And I would just keep a little scorecard for every month. And, it was hard at first. What was hard initially at first was to just look at the end of the month and go, oh my goodness, I lost my temper like every day this month. This needs to get better, to the point where, it's a very rare happening now.
Yeah. And also the important thing is that what happens after that? Like, we are human. We can lose, like, it is also good for children to know that we are human. You may lose your temper, but what will you do after that? How do you repair the relationship? Are you going to acknowledge that you made a mistake? Are you going and apologize? Are you going to do something about it? Or will it become internalized and then feed that anger all over again? And then you will do something else.
Yeah.
It can also be something that parents can, again, role model for their children.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Tell me, what was it that inspired you? You go become a therapist, and that's really hard work, and you're working hard, and it's like, oh, I'm going to make my day even more difficult. I'm going to write a children's book.
Yeah. So like I worked with children and teenagers for like 10 years. I was a teacher before that. Before I changed my major to become a counselor, I was a teacher. And then I realized that, okay, I need more. Like, I need to be able to help these children. But being a teacher is not fulfilling me, is not giving me those knowledge to help them as much as I want. So I changed my major to counseling psychology. And my passion right now is not just children and like youth, it's just emotion regulation and suicide prevention. So my work, like my 9 to 5, is focusing on adults. So outside of that work, I'm creating these children books for children. So Max and Mood Master is just the first book from the series of Max learning about his emotions. The second one is out, and it is more about understanding our rationale and thinking. So in the second one, Max meets the cricket, the magnifier, who is going to help him understand, is his assumption true, or does he need more facts? Does he need to search for more evidence before reacting to a situation? And I'm also running some free workshops for youth and parents to help give back to the community. I'm deeply interested in like emotion regulation, because if we can change it from young age, that's going to change the whole thing.
Yeah.
Imagine in 50 years, number of people who are running to each other and starting a fight, number of people who say things and then they regret it. What would the world look like if we can
I think it would look a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me, when I was growing up, now granted I'm almost 100 years old, but it was very, very rare for you to know we knew each other's, everyone knew each other's business. We lived on top of each other, but it was very rare to hear that a kid was going to see a therapist or even a guidance counselor at school. I feel it's much. There are a lot more kids in therapy these days and seeing their counselors. Are there more kids in need of it, or are we just as a society becoming more accepting of the fact that, yeah, we can all use some help in dealing with our emotions?
I feel like it is both of them. Like, there are issues right now that there wasn't in the past, like social media, like using a lot of bullying was just in the school. It wasn't on social media. Like, more problems are coming up that are unique to this era. So parents are trying to ask for more help from professionals, but also they are more aware. Like, instead of waiting till the kiddo becomes a teenager and then realizing that, okay, they have anger management issue, they want to change it from the beginning. And there are many parents who want to change their parenting style. Not that they are doing anything wrong, but they want to break that cycle of like, I say you do this and you have to do this. There is no conversation about this. So I feel it is both true.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned that you are working with folks to help prevent suicide. That seems to be an issue that has really grown these days. How prevalent is this in our society?
I think it is just the numbers are so upsetting. And I feel like there needs to be more done in this area that it is happening right now. And with everything that is happening regarding the financial situation and all of those things, there are not enough support for people. Access to mental health is not as easy as it should be. People still are afraid of talking about suicide, feeling suicidal. Kids, I have seen kiddos feeling suicidal. And there are a lot of opinions on that. Like there are parents saying that child is just seeking attention. There are cultures, I know that at least from my own culture in the past, like if this is happening and if we don't talk about it, it is going to go away. If we don't talk about suicide, it is going to go away. But that's not true. We need to work on that. We need to have an open conversation. We need to be less scared of that topic.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is something that we need to deal with and support. I know when I was much younger, I was of the opinion that somebody committed suicide. That's so selfish, and they're taking the easy way out. And now, with a lot more maturity, I look and I'm thinking, my goodness, I can't imagine how much pain somebody must be in if they're making that choice. And how can we help that person?
Yeah, it is just what happens in somebody's thought when those urges come up is not what we imagine. They are not taking an easy way out. The pain is become so much intense that they cannot tolerate it anymore. And they feel like nobody will understand them. Even if they ask for help, nobody will understand. So we have in my other work, that's our focus of suicide prevention. And we have the whole website and organization focused on that and working for adults. So if I feel like parents sometimes need more skills, sometimes need more education on how to talk. What should I do? What skills should I use if my child comes and say that the emotions feel so intense? They can go and look up our website, and some of the skills, especially stop, drop, and roll, was designed for that moment of intensity of emotions. When the urges become so intense that people, feel like there is no way out of this pain. There is no way that it can get solved or anything else will change.
So you're mentioning that book 2 is out now.
Yes.
In the Max series. What's the title of that book?
Max and the Magnifier. I love the magical creature. So Max always meets something magical.
Awesome. And do you have a plan? Do you know how many books you're going to have in the series?
The idea, my plan is to have at least 6 books. And in all of these 6 books, Max will learn about his emotion and his thought patterns through meeting a magical creature.
Wonderful. That sounds really neat. And where did the idea for Max come from? Was it based on somebody in your life, a kid that you might have worked with, or just from your imagination?
Yeah. When I was a child, I really loved the boy named starting with an M. I think it is my subconscious coming up. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Max and the Mood Master, and also find out more about you.
So I have an Instagram public profile, Challenge Your Thoughts, that I focus on both helping parents and also adults. I post, I'm really busy, but I try to post more frequently and talk about any tips that I found when I'm reading a book or when I'm doing a training or when I'm teaching a workshop, and I post it there. And you can find the book on Amazon.
Awesome. Awesome. We've had a great time speaking to the author of Max and the Mood Master. It's a great story to help kids cope with anger and frustration. Ghazala, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you so much for having me. It was awesome.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. Hey, if this episode made you smile, gave you something to think about. And I think that's where this episode falls. There's lots to think about in our conversations with Ghazala and Deedee. Please consider sharing it with a friend. Share the link to the show and maybe leave us a 5-star review. And, of course, subscribe to the show so you don't miss a moment. We are always looking to bring you the most important information that will help enhance your kids and your family's lives. Please connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at readingwithyourkids on Instagram, at Jedley Magic on X, our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids, and our website is readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Deedee Cummings. Please be sure to check out Hope in the Nick of Time. And also Ghazala Shoguagi. Please be sure to check out Max and the Mood Master. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better, more empathetic, and caring place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.